I would like to move on to a very simple question for both of you, and something tells me I won't get a very simple answer. But let me ask you this.
I gave you a simple answer. He's raising the cost of Medicare.
Okay, on to taxes. If your ticket is elected, who will pay more in taxes? Who will pay less? And we're starting with Vice President Biden for 2 minutes.
The middle class will pay less, and people making $1 million or more will begin to contribute slightly more. Let me give you one concrete example. The continuation of the Bush tax cuts. We are arguing that the Bush tax cuts for the wealthy should be allowed to expire. Of the Bush tax cuts for the wealthy, $800 billion of that goes to people making a minimum of $1 million. We see no justification in these economic times for those, and they're patriotic Americans. They're not asking for this continued tax cut. They're not suggesting it, but my friends are insisting on it. 120,000 families, by continuing that tax cut, will get an additional $500 billion in tax relief in the next 10 years, and their income is an average of $8 million. We want to extend permanently the middle class tax cut permanently from the Bush middle class tax cut. These guys won't allow us to. You know what they're saying? We say, let's have a vote. Let's have a vote on the middle class tax cut, and let's have a vote on the upper tax cut. Let's go ahead and vote on it. They're saying no. They're holding hostage the middle class tax cut to the super wealthy. And on top of that, they got another tax cut coming. That's $5 trillion that all the studies point out will, in fact, give another $250,000 a year to those 120,000 families and raise taxes for people who are middle income with a child by $2,000 a year. This is unconscionable. There is no need for this. The middle class got knocked on their heels. The Great Recession crushed them. They need some help now. The last people who need help are 120,000 families for another $500 billion tax cut over the next 10 years.
Congressman.
Our entire premise of these tax reform plans is to grow the economy and create jobs. It's a plan that's estimated to create 7 million jobs. Now, we think that government taking 28% of a family and business's income is enough. President Obama thinks that the government ought to be able to take as much as 44.8% of a small business's income. Look, if you taxed every person in successful small business making over $250,000 at 100%, it only run the government for 98 days. If everybody who paid income taxes last year, including successful small businesses, doubled their income taxes this year, we'd still have a $300 billion deficit. You see, there aren't enough rich people and small businesses to tax to pay for all their spending. And so the next time you hear them say, don't worry about it, we'll get a few wealthy people to pay their fair share, watch out, middle class, the tax bill is coming to you. That's why we're saying we need fundamental tax reform. Let's take a look at it this way. 8 out of 10 businesses, they file their taxes as individuals, not as corporations. And where I come from, overseas, which is Lake Superior, the Canadians, they drop their tax rates to 15%. The average tax rate on businesses in the industrialized world is 25%, and the president wants the top effective tax rate on successful small businesses to go above 40%. 2/3 of our jobs come from small businesses. This one tax would actually tax about 53% of small business income. It's expected to cost us 710,000 jobs. And you know what? It doesn't even pay for 10% of their proposed deficit spending increases. What we are saying is lower tax rates across the board and close loopholes primarily to the higher income people. We have 3 bottom lines. Don't raise the deficit, don't raise taxes on the middle class, and don't lower the share of income that is borne by the high income earners. He'll keep saying this $5 trillion plan, I suppose. It's been discredited by 6 other studies, and even their own deputy campaign manager acknowledged that it wasn't correct.
Well, let's talk about this 20%. You have refused, and again, to offer specifics on how you pay for that 20% across the board tax cut. Do you actually have the specifics, or are you still working on it, and that's why you won't tell voters?
Different than this administration, we actually want to have big bipartisan agreements. You see, I understand
that. Do you have the specifics? Do you have the math? Do you know exactly what you're doing?
Look at what Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill did. They worked together out of a framework to lower tax rates and broaden the base, and they worked together to fix that. What we're saying is, here's our framework. Lower tax rates 20%. We raise about $1.2 trillion through income taxes. We forego about $1.1 trillion in loopholes and deductions. And so what we're saying is, deny those loopholes and deductions to higher income taxpayers so that more of their income is taxed, which has a broader base of taxation, so we can lower tax rates across the board. Now, here's why I'm saying this. What we're saying is, here's
I hope
the
I'm
framework.
going to get time to respond to
We
this.
want to work with
You'll get
Congress.
time.
We want to work with Congress on how best to achieve this. That means successful. Look,
No specifics
Mitt-
again.
what we're saying is lower tax rates 20%, start with the wealthy, work with Congress
And
to do
you
it.
guarantee this math will add up.
Absolutely. 6 studies have guaranteed, 6 studies have verified that this math adds up. But
Vice
here's the other
President
point.
Biden.
Let me
Vice
finish
President
one point
Biden.
Let me
if I could.
translate. Let me have a chance to translate.
I'll come back in a second then, right?
First of all, I was there when Ronald Reagan tax breaks. He gave specifics of what he was going to cut. No, number one, in terms of tax expenditures. Number two, 97% of the small businesses in America make less than $250,000. Let me tell you who some of those other small businesses are. Hedge funds that make $600-800 million a year. That's what they count as small businesses because they're pass through. Let's look at how sincere they are. Governor Romney on 60 Minutes, I guess it was about 10 days ago, was asked, Governor, you pay 14% on $20 million. Someone making $50,000 pays more than that. Do you think that's fair? He said, oh, yes, that's fair. That's fair. And they're going to talk about, you think these guys are going to go out there and cut those loopholes? The biggest loophole they take advantage of is the carried interest loophole and capital gains loophole. They exempt that. Now, there's not enough. The reason why the AEI study, the American Enterprise Institute study, the Tax Policy Center study, the reason they all say taxes are going to go up in the middle class, the only way you can find $5 trillion in loopholes is cut the mortgage deduction for middle class people, cut the health care deduction for middle class people, take away their ability to get a tax break to send their kids to college. That's why they
Is
arrive
he wrong about that?
He is wrong about that.
How's that?
You can cut tax rates by 20% and still preserve these important preferences for middle-class taxpayers.
Not mathematically possible.
It is mathematically possible. It's been done before. It's precisely what we're proposing.
It has never been done before.
It's been done a couple of times,
It
actually.
has never been
Jack
done
Kennedy
before.
lowered tax rates, increased growth. Ronald Reagan.
Now you're Jack Kennedy.
Ronald Reagan. Republicans and
amazing.
Democrats have worked together on this. I
That's
understand
right.
you guys aren't used to
But
doing
we've told
bipartisan
each other
deals.
what we're going to do. When we did it with
Republicans
Reagan,
and
he said,
Democrats.
here are the
we
things
said,
we're
here's
going to
the
cut.
framework. Let's
Here's what
work
he
together
said.
to fill in the details. That's
Fill in
exactly.
the details.
That's how you get things done. You work with Congress. Look, let me say it this way. Mitt
That's
Romney
coming
was
from the
governor.
Republican Congress working bipartisanly.
Mitt Romney.
7% rating.
Mitt Romney was governor of Massachusetts, where 87% of the legislators he served with were Democrats. He didn't demonize them. He didn't demagogue them. He met with those party leaders every week. He reached across the aisle. He didn't compromise principles.
And you
he
saw
found
what
common
happened.
ground, and he balanced the budget.
So if he
balanced
did
the
such
budget
a great
4
job,
times.
Vice
if he did such a
President,
good
what-
job in
Balanced the budget 4 times
Massachusetts,
without raising taxes.
why isn't he even contesting Massachusetts?
Vice President,
That's
what
kinda
would you
curious, isn't it?
suggest? What would you suggest beyond raising taxes on the wealthy that would substantially reduce
Not
the
just
long-term
let the
deficit?
taxes expire like they're supposed to on those millionaires. We can't afford $800 billion going to people making a minimum of $1 million. They do not need it, Martha. Those 120,000 families make $8 million a year. Middle-class people need the help. Why does my friend cut out the tuition tax credit for them? Why does he go after
Can
the
you
child
declare
care?
anything off
Why
limits?
do they
Can
do
you
that?
declare anything off limits?
Yeah, we're saying
Home
close
mortgage
loopholes on
deductions,
high-interest people.
Home mortgage
For
deduction.
higher income people. Here,
Can you guarantee that no one
this tax
making
is-
less than $100,000 have a mortgage
This-
their mortgage deduction impacted?
this taxes
Guaranteed?
a million small businesses. He keeps trying to make you think that it's just some movie star or hedge fund guy or an actor.
97% of the small businesses make less than $250,000 a year. Would not be
You know
affected
it
one
hits a
bit.
million. This taxes a million people, a million small
Does it
businesses.
tax 97% of the American
it
businesses?
taxes a million small
business?
businesses who are our greatest job
I
creators.
wish I could get it. The greatest job
And you're,
creators are the hedge
and you're
fund
going to
guys.
increase the
Think about it
defense
this way.
budget. And you're going to increase the defense
We're just not going to
budget.
cut the defense budget like they're
You're gonna
proposing.
increase it $2 billion.
That's
$2
not
trillion.
accurate.
More
We're
than
talking
that.
about
No, so
preventing-
no massive
No, we're saying
defense
don't.
increase.
Okay, you want to get into defense now?
Yes, I
All
do.
right.
I do.
So-
because that's another math question.
okay.
How do you do that?
So They proposed a $478 billion cut to defense to begin with. Now we have another $500 billion cut to defense that's lurking on the horizon. They insisted upon that cut being involved in the debt negotiations. And so now we have a $1 trillion
Let's put the automatic
cut.
defense cuts
Right,
aside,
okay.
okay?
So
Let's
we-
put
I'd
like
those
to go back
aside.
to
No
that.
one wants
Okay.
that, but I want to know how you do the math and have this increase in defense
$2 trillion.
spending.
You don't cut defense by $1 trillion. That's what we're talking about.
And
The
what
discussion of
national
trillion.
security issues
Who's cutting it by $1
justify an
trillion?
increase?
We're going to cut 80,000 soldiers, 20,000 Marines, 120 cargo planes. We're going to push the Joint Strike
Drawing
Fighter
down
out. We're
and
cutting
one
missile
more
defense.
and one more.
If these
withdrawing
cuts go
from
through, our Navy will be the smallest it has been since before World War I. This invites weakness. Look, do we believe in peace through strength? You bet we do. And that means you don't impose these devastating cuts on our military. So we're saying don't cut the military by $1 trillion. Not increase it by $1 trillion. Don't cut it by $1 trillion.
Quickly, Vice President Biden on this.
Look,
I want to move on.
We don't cut it. And I might add, this so-called, I know we don't want to use the fancy word sequester, this automatic cut, that was part of a debt deal that they asked for. And let me tell you what my friend said at a press conference announcing his support of the deal. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, we've been looking for this moment for a long time.
Can I tell you what that meant? We've been
Why,
looking for
sure.
bipartisanship for a long time.
And so the bipartisanship is what he voted for, the automatic cuts in defense if they didn't act. And beyond that, they asked for another. Look, the military says we need a smaller, leaner army. We need more special forces. We don't need more M1 tanks. What we need is more UAVs.
Some of the military, I know that's something
Not some
you
of the
support.
military. That was the decision of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, recommended to us and agreed to by the president.
Who
They're
answered
the
to a
facts.
civilian leader?
They made the recommendation first.